Dave, you're very, very good at podcasting.
Why?
I think you're very good speaking
He prepares.
It's great. I just like listening to your podcast.
That's such
Sam,
a nice shout
I feel the
out.
same about you.
That's nice, Sam.
This is a more or less love fest. Okay. Greetings, Morans.
Hey, guys.
How's it going? We almost made it to the end of the year.
And guess what happened? The Rona got me again, twice in 4 months.
Yeah, twice in 5 weeks wasn't so great. How you feeling, Britt?
However, I'd like to advocate for everyone out there, getting COVID a week before the holidays isn't that bad. The workflow is slowing down. You get to isolate in your room away from all the chores of the house and the kids for a few days and just watch rom-coms and read books and get room service from your husband. So I'm kind of into it, I have to say.
What rom-coms did you watch?
Well, I don't know if it's a rom-com. Lessons in Chemistry, and then I skipped to the last season of The Crown. I couldn't watch all 6 seasons, so I just skipped to the Princess Di season, and I liked it. It's really good.
Yeah, I've been watching it all along. No spoilers. Just kidding. Well, sorry to hear that.
She dies, Britt. Princess Diana.
No.
Thanks, Captain Obvious.
The Queen too. You know, it
Queen
happened.
also dies.
She does. Yeah.
The story of The Crown is everyone eventually dies.
I don't want to end our year on this topic of that. We've gathered here today. I think for an exciting.
You know what also dies is the Adobe-Figma merger. We could pivot on that.
We could, but first let me welcome the listeners. This will be our last taped episode of 2023, and we want to thank you guys for being here, for making this pod so much fun. And we're gonna lay it all in the field, so to say, in the next however long this goes, because we've got a lot of things to say about the year that was, some of which reflecting on things we got wrong. Yes, Sam, you have to do one of those too.
I just don't remember what I said.
I'll help. And then we're going to look ahead to next year. I was having a coffee with my friend Ruchi Sangvi today, shout out on the pod. And we both agree next year is going to be a very exciting year in technology. So
I want to know Ruchi's hot takes.
You know, I invited her and Aditya.
Here's the thing. Her takes might be too hot.
Oh, goodness.
She's spicy.
Anyway.
Ruchi has my favorite hot takes. I love Ruchi's hot takes.
She and her husband will be great guests on the pod in 2024. This constitutes her official invitation to join. But anyway, so we've got a lot to cover. I hope you guys are ready. Sam, I like where we set us off by talking about Adobe. I remember where I was when you looked at your phone and told me that Adobe was buying Figma for $20 billion. And I remember being like, holy moly, we haven't seen this kind of M&A in tech for a while. We got news this week that Adobe is not.
I don't remember telling you that. So that just goes to show our predictions.
We were on the turf. We're on the turf. I clearly have a better memory. And this week, in the face of a ton of antitrust scrutiny, the merger was, I was going to say deconsummated, but how about broken up? It's not going to happen. And
someone gets $1 billion out of it, which is kind of fun. A free $1 billion.
A free $1 billion breakup fee. Sam, your hot take.
Hot take. Look, I mean, everyone in technology is saying this is so bad for innovation, blah, blah, blah. I get it. Adobe's going to be fine. Figma's going to be fine. I actually think that there's a really pro-capitalism argument that it's not a bad thing to do to say you guys can't merge. And the basic argument is that, yes, it's true that it'll make the cost of capital for startups go up. If you can't get acquired on a success story, but not yet a successful, or not a very successful business. Figma is a successful business, but not like a very successful financial business. If you can't get acquired as like a strategic asset, and the big platforms can't acquire you anymore, yes, prices on capital go up. people aren't going to give startups as much money as cheaply because it cuts off one of the paths to getting paid back. Absolutely true. And yes, it does obviously in some ways hinder innovation, right? In that, all of a sudden you can't go out and build kind of monoline or interesting products for strategic value. But I think the flip side is that people are missing is like, if you just think about capitalism as a set of APIs for valuing and kind of getting people to choose paths, which ultimately result in EBITDA and cash flow, I actually think this is like pretty good because all of a sudden as a startup, you'd be like, you actually have to build a successful business to go public and make money and like be a successful company. You can't just build a product that's strategically valuable to someone else and get acquired. So I don't know. I think that's good on the startup side. And on the big platform side, I also think it's good that they are in a position where the way you get to continue to be a big platform is by innovating yourself, building great products, like doing that. You can't just sit there with a pile of cash and pick off the up and comers, right? And pay them off to kind of go away or become part of your platform. So I'm not as cynical as most people on this. Like everyone thinks this is like the end of the world. I think it's like fine as a future framework where we're going.
But what's so striking about your analysis is it completely ignored sort of the government's rationale and the point about whether by acquiring Figma, Adobe is like violating antitrust laws, and B, the question of like whether the government, like how activist you kind of want a government in that capitalism progress.
I get it. I just think it's like, I understand this isn't the traditional argument or how it's playing out, but I just think when you scope out for a second and say like, how do you feel about a world where really big companies can't acquire things for $20 billion of funny money, fake valuation dollars that are real actually, but they're kind of all made up based on multiples. I just don't think it's that bad. Like I think it's fine. And I think the lesson is just build good companies. Like Figma's going to be fine. They're going to build a very financially successful business. It's a great piece of software. Maybe they'll acquire Adobe someday, right? But it does create a more competitive, fun, holistic game where the ground rules are EBITDA. The ground rules are actually making money and building successful businesses, not just like cool products.
But I want to turn over to Britt, like your views, but also on the ground rules of like, we can't just skirt antitrust law, right? Because a government sort of selectively picking and choosing things to go after versus like really clear-cut cases, I find it hard to see that benefiting the ecosystem. And just one more note on this, Adobe, a ton of different design software, obviously, Figma in the design software arena. But like, I do worry about the precedent this kind of sets. And if it says that like really all kinds of acquisitions are off the table. But what do you think, Britt?
Okay, so first of all, Scott Belsky, who was a key part of this acquisition, was our only fifth wheel this season on more or less, and did not comment on the status of the acquisition at the time. But if you guys remember, Adobe announced this intention to acquire Figma in early September 2022, which was A, before the AI craze burst with OpenAI and everything else, B, before the markets really kind of fell out from under us. And, if you look back in time, I think that the valuation that they were giving even then was probably part of the bubble valuation. And I do think that Adobe has really stepped it up quite a bit this year, thanks to Scott. Actually, a lot of their new product releases and AI integration has been really compelling, I think. And if I'm Adobe, I'm like, I kind of dodged a bullet. I think that we've got a lot of our shit together. We are building a lot of really cool things. And maybe this was too high of a price to pay for a really great piece of software, but something that, within the last 15 months, we maybe could have made a big dent in ourselves. So I think that the time lapse that this has happened in is really interesting as a bullet point to the story.
Yeah, although remember that like their stock was trading at $622 a share when they announced it. It's at $590 now.
Was it a cash deal or a stock deal?
I don't even know. But either way, like
we can find out.
That's a good thing to Google on the fly. But like either, I assume it's at least partially stock. I bet it was a little cash and a bunch of stock. But the point is like,
I think it's mixed cash and stock.
The other thing I'd say is like, look.
Yeah, half 50-50.
Figma's play, right, which Adobe still doesn't have covered, was awesome collaboration. Adobe's going to crush it on AI. We've said this repeatedly since the early days. Like the Adobe of AI is Adobe, right?
They can't open my eyes in a holiday card photo, but still, just want everyone to know that.
It's fine. Like give them a year. It's like this is like child's play, right? So they're going to crush it at that. They have awesome distribution. But I think the thing they have lacked, and they continue to lack, is like Figma's better for collaboration, right? And they missed that, right? And Figma's going to build a little powerhouse out of that for what they do. So I don't know. Like I don't think, I kind of doubt. Yes, they probably overpaid by 2x, but with an inflated currency, which is what they had at that point. And I actually do wonder. Like the interesting part is when it traded down a bunch, right? And if it was a 50-50 stock deal, it's an interesting analysis of like at what point do you want to cut bait because like you did pay too much. But it's not like a disaster. And I do think it's strategic for them to obviously have had it. And I don't think AI fixes it for them. Like they still have a collaboration problem, right? And collaboration will still be a beachhead for things like Figma and Canva, right? In a different direction to kind of do interesting stuff.
Dave, what do you think?
I mean, I guess I'm kind of with you, Jess, is that this just isn't an antitrust slam dunk at all. And I think that it just like drives immense amount of uncertainty into the ecosystem, which is totally unnecessary. Of all of the antitrust cases to actually get blocked this year, this one really, I mean, it's just like
Activision Blizzard went through, right? Microsoft acquiring it.
I'm just having a really hard time with how ridiculous this is. And, I'm with you, Sam. Like, this is probably good. I do think it pours a lot of cold water on the ecosystem in a bunch of totally irrational ways. I think all of your rational pathways in your argument are really real. But the kind of potential cooling effect it has downstream for the capital ecosystem really sucks. And I guess we're looking for from the regulatory authorities, and this was mostly the UK, the EU, the CMA, these kind of like European regulators that
I agree are the worst, right? Like to be clear, European regulators are the worst.
And do they even have a right to stop this in the United States? Like we could get into that whole thing.
Well,
but
Dave, this actually speaks to a conversation we keep having on this pod, which is like, look, the internet is fragmenting. If those companies weren't in the EU, right, they'd have no rights. And so like, the sense that we're just like, there'll be an American internet where America Adobe can acquire America Figma. But, we're just not European countries. They just can't have nice things. That's fine.
That wasn't that a name of one of our episodes or something?
Why you can't have nice things?
Well, that's a Taylor Swift song. It's also a Taylor Swift song, guys.
By the way, finally got through the Eras tour, but that's okay. We'll come back to that.
Dave, I agree with you. I think there's a chilling effect. I think it's stupid. But I do think there's a glass half full way to look at it. I mean, imagine a rule in the world that just said, look, when you buy an asset, there's like the book value of the assets, right? If you own like a factory, fine. Like that's a hard asset, like whatever. But you can't pay more than X% premium on like the book value of a company, which then means you can't really acquire things strategically. Like you can't overpay to make up for a strategic weakness. You basically can just pay for things based on what they're worth or based on cash flow. Totally different world than we live in today, to be clear. Like that's a totally different framework. But this idea that's saying like, you can't stay on top just by throwing around cash to make up strategic mistakes. And to be a real business, you build cash flow to the APIs of capitalism, right? Like, I don't like, it's fine. It's
but
just
Sam, that version of capitalism seems at all like, I mean, there's like a libertarian side of you that I thought would be saying more like it's none of the government's business, or if you want to overspend. Like, between
Sam, are you getting soft at the end of 2023 and you're with your libertarian streak?
I'm trying on a new shirt. I'm seeing how it feels.
I'm the libertarian on this pod. It's like, what the hell's going on? Like
between the digital identity only talking to United States citizens. I mean, it's just a little bit of like, you're okay with like big brother government here.
No, I'm definitely not. But I'm like, I also just think that the reality is like, we're not going to live in a libertarian Wild West anymore on the internet. And I think what the worst is to like continue down being ideologues about it instead think about how to refactor things in like better ways. So the Wild West is
you've got it. The EU is like actually throwing around. This is like purely ideological.
I agree.
Political nonsense.
Of course it is. And the EU sucks. But like, for instance, I do think from the libertarian, non-libertarian standpoint, I'm very much in line with and been for months on that. It's like, we absolutely should ban TikTok. It's completely insane that we would allow like a foreign.
Well, we're 14 minutes into the episode, and 14 minutes, and we're banning.
I'm gonna have like the.
You get one per episode. Okay, go.
It's gonna be like I want to be like the person in Zero Dark 30, and I'm just gonna put the sign. It's like 67 days, and we still haven't banned TikTok. It's like completely inexcusable.
Sam, it's like, please, for the love of God, do something that matters, like banning TikTok.
Yes.
Let's put this on our 2024 predictions list. I think, Sam, that's a good one for your list.
It's like the EU is the Y Combinator of capitalism or something right now. Like they're doing the like most innovative political stuff. Like they could at least do this so that we could be a fast follower in America or something.
Good. No, we can't. The problem is it's kind of like getting rid of presidents. If the EU does it, then we won't out of spite. It's like because Penn got the president, then like Harvard's like, no way, that's like the Penn move. Like we're cooler than that, even though they clearly should. And like it'll be like the same thing where like the EU will get rid of TikTok, which is the right move, and then America will like, we're never banning TikTok because we're not stupid.
Man.
Okay, we've got a lot of ground to cover, but anything more on this deal? What it says going forward? Britt, you correctly predicted more M&A.
What M&A has there been?
Minus this one. Technically, this was a 2022 deal, so it doesn't matter.
There have been so many PE software rollouts.
Yeah.
Not M&A.
I think I got that one right, Sam. I didn't predict more IPOs.
But Britt, how does this kind of shake that? Okay, put your crystal ball, glass, whatever thing on. Like, what do you think? How will this outcome
I still think there's going to be more M&A next year, too, because a lot of companies are continuing to like dwindle and can't find footing and funding. But I also do predict, and I don't know if we're in prediction territory yet, but I do predict the IPOs become more robust next year as well.
Well, it's pretty easy prediction off the basis of zero robustness. It's like we correctly predicted that you should not buy Instacart stock. And I will say in 2024, you should still not buy Instacart stock.
But I do think there will be some good IPOs next year is my point. Like I think like actual successful IPOs.
Like who? Name them.
I think Canva is going to be an interesting IPO.
I don't think they're in any rush.
I mean, Figma.
Figma could IPO.
I mean, the one
Isn't Reddit IPOing?
Reddit's got to get out.
They've been trying to IPO for like years.
They have been literally trying to IPO for years.
I don't know that they're in the best position. I mean, the advertising market's soft. Like, I don't see that happening.
I'm more pro Canva than anything.
I mean, if anything, the last hot take on this is if you go back a few episodes ago, we were talking about that the amount of value that's accrued to the big 5 tech platforms over the last 5 to 7 years is, something in excess of $3 trillion. It's like an unbelievable amount of value. And it so far exceeds the downstream numbers that we're seeing in the IPO markets and all of the other related areas that's maybe the only worry here is that we're going to have this deep cooling effect on large acquisitions and maybe not big 10, $20 billion ones, but if it cools things down in the 100 million plus category, that really hurts the Silicon Valley ecosystem. And so to me, like that's actually the real sort of nuanced thing here.
The ecosystem is hurt. I mean, we spent most of our time in the last couple months, right? I'm going to lay out some big themes that we spent a lot of time talking about and how we kind of feel about them. So theme 1, end of venture capital as we know it.
Still dying.
I'm going to go through them quickly too.
Everywhere except crypto.
Crypto's crushing it.
AI.
Still a thing, still not a thing to be a startup in.
Okay.
Keep going.
The question is whether we have to silence Sam for this part until
I know. Yeah, Sam, you can add your comment.
This is good. This is a window to my world. Go. Okay, well, but then how about a rebuttal? So the information reported today, Anthropic, an AI company, an AI B Corp. So it's like an AI company with a little bit of like a weird structure.
So imagine that.
Yeah, I know. Raising, but not as weird as OpenAI. Raising $750 million, so $750 million from Menlo Ventures, a venture capital firm.
Yeah.
So what do you make of that, Sam? Doesn't look like venture capital's dead. Doesn't look like AI is dead.
No, it's totally dead. Menlo is like, we have so much money and nowhere to put it. Here, take it. Like, that's not venture capital. That's like growth equity at best. And it's because they have nowhere else to put it. So like, we can't bet on any actual startups. So we'll shovel it all into the also ran of AI, which may be fine.
Does Menlo have $7 billion?
Anthropic is not also ran of AI. So that...
It's not the lift of AI.
Anthropic is no way an also ran. It's got a foundational model. It's right in the game. Claude.
I mean, again, I just think it's like, I actually think these types of moves where you see VCs plowing enormous amounts of capital into a few names, right, is just a really example of how sick venture capital is as an ecosystem because
I'll agree with.
They've overraised funds. They have nowhere to put them. They can't do the core VC job. And so it's really easy to write one big check, take 2 and 20 on it for the next decade, and you have a flyer in, right? Like that's kind of like, I think what's really going on at the high end of VC.
And then the year...
Yeah, and back to the old take, which is there's no more venture and venture capital anymore. This is all just capital.
It's just what we do. It is all just capitalism. I do think seed venture capital is still chugging fine. I'm very obsessed.
Sam, we do venture capital. These guys are doing capital.
Yeah, but they're doing it badly versus the East Coast.
Is that called private equity or is it called something else?
No.
I think we should just start calling it private equity. It's just private equity by another name. Like these guys are just sitting around waiting for the Overton window and then writing the check. You know?
It's private equity minus financial discipline is what it is, right? It's private. Like the private equity guys are like
private equity, but bloat your cost structure instead of...
Yeah, it's like private equity where like the numbers aren't financial numbers and you're not going for profit, right? Which is dangerous because every once in a while you might be right, but it's like a pretty wild set of bets to make versus like the discipline of capitalism, right?
Okay. Britt, what's your take on like what you thought was going to happen in VC this year? What has happened?
I'm surprised more firms haven't gone under.
Yeah.
What was the one that went under last week? OpenView. OpenView. I think that we're going to see more of that. Although I did just see someone bought a bunch of funds from somebody else. I'm forgetting, was it Cotu or somebody? I don't know. Anyway, so I think that we're going to see more of that happen over the next 12 months and more consolidation.
Are these like old funds?
Yeah. I think they're buying up some of the older funds.
Yeah.
Wait, what does that mean? Are they buying their positions or what are they doing?
It can mean any of the things. I mean, all the things happen, right? You can.
My absolute favorite businesses in the world is the write-off businesses. Do you guys know about these? So like when a company is dead and you want to get it off your books as a VC, you can't just like say the company's dead and take the write-off. Like you have to sell it to someone, right? Yeah. So there's these companies that for like $100 will buy for 1 cent your shares in anything. But the funny thing is that every once in a blue moon, it actually turns out those shares are valuable. Right. So these firms just exist as like an API for getting things off your books. But every once in a while, they end up being really great businesses. So it's like, I love that. I want to start one of those.
How efficient are they, though?
Oh, I'm sure. What do you mean? In terms of what?
Like, what's the multiple on one of those?
Oh, I have no idea. I think it's like a really schmaltzo weird, but it's just so funny, right? I like love the idea of being the person who holds all the stock to all the most random companies that are all dead.
Just call it Undertaker Capital.
Portfolio nightmare, though, to manage that.
Ooh, yes. Nightmare Capital.
That's actually pretty good.
Branding ideas.
It's like my venture capitalist is Nightmare VC. It's like, would you like to follow? I have this great deal. It's being led by Nightmare VC.
Yeah, exactly. I predict that more or less will spawn several more very interesting venture strategies next year. What did we have this year? We had Nightmare VC. Sam, we had a few others.
You labeled like big box, maybe not industrial venture capital.
5 day a week VC, 5 day a week VC.
5 day a week. 5 day a week.
5 day a week in-person VC is, I'm now hearing that echo peep. I think we're right about that, right? Like people are just saying like you should not invest in companies that are remote because like they're all going to underperform. I'm hearing that from people not just
at the seed stage. I'm still not ready to give up my hybrid future especially for growth stage companies. I think it's really important to moms and parents to be able to have a little flexibility. And even like the big tech companies are 3 days a week.
But wait, so how do we feel did we make remote work predictions or did we just express our views? Because that's another good area to look at.
I think we expressed our views.
Okay.
We know Sam's opinion, but he's in this pool house. So
everyone else should be in person, but I should be in the pool house. This is my view.
Exactly.
I think that's pretty much a universal opinion, Sam.
Yes.
Then I should be in the pool house. I agree.
And Jess, I think you and I were more aligned on maybe the hybrid structure, correct?
Yeah. I think the benefits of in-person work are huge. I think hybrid makes sense in a lot of circumstances, but I do think it's a little kind of counterproductive that we have kind of ended up with that as the norm, even though it benefits me personally and flexibility in my life. But my most fun work moments this year were all in person.
And my most fun work moments were at
I think that's one of the hard things about this. I've been thinking about this a lot the last few weeks as there's been more holiday get-togethers and just seeing a lot more people in person this month. And despite that, the hybrid Zoom life continues. And I think it's this thing. It's once water becomes steam, you can't turn it back into water again. Once you've made toast, you can't turn it back into bread again. Right? And so it's like...
You can definitely turn steam into water, Dave.
It's a metaphor.
You get what he's saying, Sam. I like the toast one better.
Toast
is
works.
better.
Toast, I understand.
Can't put the toothpaste back in the toothpaste tube.
Container.
It's the end of the year. Give me some slack.
I know. We're working at 75% steam, guys.
I guess I just think that the pandemic really did change this. And I think largely people aren't going to go back to one or the other. I think it's going to be a hybrid, weird world going forward. And so our takes almost don't matter. It's not like one of these things where all of society at large is just going to switch back to the way things were. I think we think about it a lot. We talk about it a lot. We nostalgically wish that it would happen, but it's just something that's not going to happen. And I feel like I'm watching it play out. I would love to do more in-person meetings, right? But it's just not fully happening. And I don't know, maybe we'll see more of it next year, but
I think we're seeing companies there is some variation in between companies and their culture, right? So, I mean, I think there are startups that are much more in person or much more, there's sort of like hybrid where you're supposed to be in 3 days a week. And then there's hybrid where you're in 3 days a week. Like, so I think in the startup world, you're seeing companies kind of settle into their culture, which is very healthy and people can choose.
It also just depends on what your job is. I mean, honestly, there's lots of jobs where it's like the putting out system from the Industrial Revolution, right? It's like your job is like super self-similar. It's like a factory line. You're producing things off a task queue. Fine, do it from wherever. It's like those jobs are the ones that are going to go away to AI first, but fine. It's like if you're doing intensely creative work that needs collaboration, then be in the same room. And you'll probably outperform on those types of tasks. It's not.
It's fair.
I agree with Dave. It's not going to be like so black and white, but I also think it's like in creative, interesting, hardcore stuff, the in-person teams will clearly outperform. It might not even be that they'll outperform because it matters. Even if it didn't, the mere fact of people signing up to be in person and take the pain of being up in person is like going to be a filtering function on who succeeds, right? So let's pretend there is actually no difference between hybrid work and in-person work. There is, but let's pretend there wasn't. The people who are like driven enough to put up with the bullshit of commuting and living in a city and whatever, like those hardcore people will just outcompete the people who want to hang out in pool houses like me, right? And that's cool.
Maybe.
I'm fine with that.
I guess what I'm kind of pushing on is maybe. I've watched in the second 2 quarters of this year, I watched specifically from the front lines 2 startups get off the ground. And it's like it wasn't even a question that it was hybrid. That's what I think is so fascinating, is that everyone's talking about this as if it were a binary decision, but it doesn't seem to be. It just seems to be that it's just normal, that everybody's kind of operating from wherever they're operating. And you're right, whoever needs to collaborate in person is collaborating in person, but there's people kind of tapping in from all over the place, and there's different skill sets zooming in from here and there, and it's just normal.
Yeah, it's kind of like everything in this generation is just fluid.
I mean, by the way, this is also something that only exists in the Silicon Valley world, right? We're sort of, I guess, Sam, you did mention that there's lots of different types of jobs out there. But
Dave, I'm going to ask you to pivot this to a prediction. So on this topic, where does this lead in 2024?
I guess my prediction is the hybrid startup is actually the future. I think that, and maybe we start to talk about it in a much more nuanced way, rather than this binary choice. I think we spent this year going, are we going back or is it going to be all remote? And there wasn't very much nuanced conversation on the hybrid work environment and hybrid work tools and how to make that even better. And, maybe with some of the new stuff coming down the pipe with
Figma,
AR and VR, and, there's a lot of things coming down the pipe that might make this quite a lot better. And so I'm much more optimistic about it than I was at the beginning of last year.
That's good. We should also take note of our personal evolution on topics. Speaking of which, we spent a lot of time this year talking about Twitter. You guys remember?
You mean X?
Indeed, we did.
Yes.
Well, it was Twitter first, and then it was X, and then there was Threads, and I'd have to go to the tape, which requires more technical skills than I have. But I believe we felt that Threads would be big, but that Twitter would stick around. Is that kind of where we? No.
I think we were mixed on this, but yeah, I think we said Twitter would stick around for a more niche community.
Forever.
And I think there was a lot of hype about Threads, both at the beginning and then still, even when the usage waned. And the notion that Instagram/Meta will continue to figure out how to grow it because there's so much distribution.
So Dave and
I'm a little bit like wary about Threads. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one here. I just still haven't seen any engagement picked up. I'm probably the closest to the influencer community of this pod. Although I know Sam has
I find a lot of them.
And by the way, I just decided to use our GPT to start bringing me up to speed on where we were.
Guys,
on these
I have
things.
a whole creator economy business. I just want everyone to know. Shout out Kaya. Okay, go ahead, Britt.
I'm not talking about the news. I'm talking about the actual creators. Like, I know a lot of them. They're not super stoked on Threads.
Jessica does know a lot of the creators. Me too.
And
they're not stoked on Threads.
I'm not waging a war on Jessica. I'm not waging a war on any of you as being non-creators.
Because I'll tell you, that'd be a mistake in 2024.
Yeah. Until we have cancel insurance. Yeah, I haven't seen engagement pick up. I'm not sure there's a lot of interest in it. I mean,
but you're also not using it.
I understand, but I peek in every now and then and I look at who is using it, and it's not like the key influencers on Instagram.
I mean, Sam, you're posting across all platforms. Like, I feel
simultaneously, round the clock. Yes,
Sam's on everything all the time, and so I feel like you'd have a really good intuitive answer to this.
Everything, everywhere, all at once.
Look, I am bullish on Threads in the long term because I have a lot of respect for Meta executives as grinders. And I think they will grind it because they care to a successful place with engagement. I will say that there's undeniable, as someone who posts the same shit everywhere, that early on, I would be at as much engagement on Threads with like a tenth the audience as I did on Twitter. And that is no longer true. It is true that like engagement on Twitter with stuff I post in the community is much higher. Now, part of that, I think, honestly, is that Twitter is this like, it depends what you post. And the thing is, people selecting to following my rants on Twitter is like a very specific niche of people that care about those rants. Whereas people who are on Threads with me are my friends and people who like wanted to see my photos at one point. And as I said early on, I think that the difference in graph does matter in terms of where you start. And I think that was one of the big questions early is, can you take a general graph, right, and adapt it to text in a way that generates the right community's engagement? I think that is still TBD and going to play out over a long period of time.
Journalists have come over to Threads more than I thought.
Yeah, I get a lot of hate on Threads is the honest reality, which I don't.
Really?
Yeah, I think
that's kind of surprising to me. I thought you would have said the opposite.
You know why? It's because I think, like, again, like on Twitter, I have never been promoted on Twitter, right? Like the people who follow me chose to follow me and they kind of knew what they were getting. Right. And so as a result, I think it's an echo chamber in a positive way for me. Like I get a lot of good feedback and like every once in a while some random stuff, but it's very tight. Whereas I think
your style is also well adapted to the Twitter.
Designed for Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Threads, because it's a much more general audience, I think my content finds its ways to more random people or people that like didn't select to follow my rants on Twitter. And so it is actually interesting. Like I'll post things that like on Twitter will get more engagement, but also it's all very positive and like, yay, Sam. And then on Threads, it's like a bunch of people being like, you are the devil. Right. And like, I just think I don't blame Threads for this. I think it's a matter of the graph design and like how my content moves through. Like it just moves to a much broader set of people on Threads. And I post controversial things, right, is the way I would look at it.
Interesting. Dave, yeah, what's your take?
I guess I have two thoughts. One of them echoes Sam's, which is I think Adam Mosseri is one of the best product people on earth. I hope that this is my putting an invite out to him. I hope he'll come on the pod and talk about product with us and talk about this in 2024. Because I agree with Sam that I have deep respect for Adam and Meta executives in general and their understanding of how to build social products. And more than anything, their willingness to go long and to just, like Sam said, grind it out. I don't at all discount that. So my expectation actually from the beginning, and I think we've talked about this, was that it would, they'd just continue and they'd iterate and they'd build and build and build. And I feel like that's what's been playing out. And props to them, right? Like they've added a lot of great stuff in a very short period of time. And it's impressive, actually. I was reading their post on their infrastructure and I guess the infrastructure team only had 2 days notice or something before they launched this thing, and the infrastructure handled it just fine. It's really impressive stuff. So that's kind of my thoughts on the product side and the people behind it. On the audience side, it's very interesting. Like, I check it every day. I've personally lost I don't know what I'm supposed to post on it. And so I had trouble finding what the voice is supposed to be. One of the more interesting things that I've noticed recently is all these people, and Jess, maybe it's what you're referring to with journalists, but it seems like there's a lot of people that are coming over and saying, I'm leaving Twitter mostly because October 7th and because Elon did another crazy, anti-Semitic thing or whatever. And so I don't want to be part of this, anymore. And it seems like there's a lot of folks doing that, but it doesn't seem like it's this massive movement. And so I can't tell if that's actually really driving a lot of new content and engagement. And it seems like that's the post you see the most from people. You see people say, I'm coming over here because I hate Twitter. And then people are always asking, like, what should I post here? And so it seems to me like a lot of people are struggling to figure out what their voice should be. And I'm not totally sure how that's going to play out. I'm experiencing it too, right? And it's like, I also want it to be a different kind of place to have a different kind of conversation. But it almost, because of that, it's easier to go back to Twitter because it's like, well, I know what the conversation is over here. It might be an aggressive WWF match on Twitter, but at least I know that, right?
Yeah, Dave, I will say one. Can I add a product thing in that
Absolutely
you sparked for me? Which is, I think actually one positive thing on Threads is, how I use Threads? I actually don't exactly post the same content everywhere. I always post anything I post on Twitter, I'll post on Threads. But I do actually occasionally post on Threads things that I want to post, but I don't want to post on Twitter. Right, because in Twitter I have a defined audience, and there's a set of things I'm trying to get out.
What's an example?
I'll just there's something funny, and I'll just post it, and it's funny because I think this is a question of what is your secondary social space, right? Which is less serious. And interestingly, I remember distinctly there used to be an era for me. This is 10 plus years ago, where Facebook I really cared about the audiences of my friends and work people and whatever, and Twitter I didn't care about, so I posted all this random shit on Twitter. And then at some point, Twitter became actually professionally important network for me. And then it was I can't post that stuff anywhere. And so Threads has become that backup for me, which means there is a bunch of other oddball content, at least I'm putting there. Instagram, Instagram's actually done this in the product, right? So Instagram, the actual photo feed became too high pressure, right? So people invented stories or other stuff that are less pressured places for content. So people would keep posting more without there being a big issue about, ooh, what are you sharing with people? So I actually think from a product perspective, the idea that these things sometimes start out as secondary spaces of random stuff and then find their way to becoming important is interesting as long as content's flowing in. Right.
It makes me appreciate Instagram more, honestly, because a photo just instantly solves that, what you guys are describing. Most people don't expend energy thinking of their alter ego second social clever self, right? And I think
do you want to know what a fascinating thing that I've noticed in the last 2 weeks on this is you can now upload full-length video to Twitter. And so I've been uploading the pod on our behalf to our Twitter account.
Well, thank you, Dave.
I was thinking about how there's no place on any meta asset that I can do that right now, and how interesting that is. I was like, wait a minute. There's nowhere on any of these meta assets that I can upload our entire podcast hour-long video and have confidence that it's going to distribute. And I was thinking on that last week, is this intentional? Or, I just kind of think that's really interesting.
It might be the same story as that infrastructure team who could boot all of the threads in 2 days.
Yeah. Okay. So to recap, we were related to future of social and threads. We were probably over enthusiastic in how successful the product would be, but we mostly Sam and Dave think it still has a bright but slow future.
Slow. But I will say this, again, let's not discount the fact that summer, that was the crazy launch. The idea that you can build anything in a modern internet age and get 100 million users in 3 days, that is crazy. Wild. And that's a really interesting moment for where we are.
You had Instagram there to help distribute it. It's not that hard.
But I also think this plays into my prediction for next year, which is I think that what this shows is that there is robust demand for new social experiences on the internet, and that there are going to be more experiments to come. And I think that the intersection of social and AI and a lot of this kind of stuff is going to become very interesting throughout 2024. And
Dave, you're very, very good at podcasting. I just want to say that.
why?
I just think you're very good speaking in
He prepares.
It's great. I just like listening to the podcast.
That's such a nice
Sam,
shout out.
I feel the same about you.
That's nice, Sam.
This is a more or less love fest. Okay.
Yeah, this is getting weird, you guys. I don't know.
I spend a lot of the podcast going, Sam's really good at this.
I think you guys have a crush on each other. It's really cute.
It's really cute.
Aww.
Okay, Dave, that's a good prediction. Can you bring us into that a little bit more? What types of experiences? Audio, video?
Dave is going to launch them.
Reveal all your portfolio company secrets.
What I hear is that Path is coming back.
That might be true. I might be talking my own book a little bit, but
That's going to be if we see the title of if we just set the title of this episode, The Path is Coming Back, we'll get a lot of listens.
A lot of listens.
That might be what we have to do for clicks.
I'm going to regret turning that power over to you.
You don't already?
Okay, Dave, and then you, Britt and Sam, get ready because we're in the prediction segment here. Okay, so
I think I already said it. We've seen a trickle of people working on new things. I think that Threads just showed demand that far exceeded anyone's realization of that people might be open to something new. I mean, you guys have to remember 2-3 years ago, definitely 2019, the year before the pandemic, everybody was like, I will not download another anything. Do not ask me to put anything on my phone. The pandemic changed this a little bit, but I think post-pandemic, we're now in this new kind of social space with each other, both in the real world and in the online world. I think people are really bored of a lot of the experiences that they're having. But I think what Threads, and by the way, the Twitter X, whatever we're calling it, experience has shown is that people are open to new stuff. And, I've seen a few really good product people in social doing some interesting things over the last month or two. And I think there's going to be more of that. I think also we're going to see Apple, start to get some of these new products out there. I think that was in the news last week. And
which one? Vision Pro?
Yeah, it seems like that's what I saw in the news last week.
Yeah, that's what they announced. Yes.
Yeah. So I just think there's going to be some new platforms. Obviously, I think Meta will sell quite a lot of Oculus this Christmas. I just think there's going to be some new toys to play around with amongst social AI, AR, VR. And I think it'll be interesting. I think people want it. And so I just hope people will. And if they want to do it, send me an email, I'll write you a check.
Well, me too.
So will Sam. We'll do it together.
Aww.
How many? What's the Vision Pro? Is what, $7,000 or is it $3,500?
$3,500.
$3,500. Okay. How many are they going to sell?
It's like two MacBooks. I don't think they're expecting to sell that much, but
they're going to sell 4 to us. So that's a start.
I'm not buying.
Yeah. I'm for sure buying one.
I think there are going to be aspects, there was one article last week about it, which described to me what I thought was going to be the most interesting experience, which is on the new 17.3 beta 3, I believe it is, which I've got on my phone right now. You can now shoot spatial video.
Oh, yeah. You talked about this. That was cool.
I've actually got it working now, and I'm finding myself taking spatial videos of my baby. And I'm really happy that I have them. I already feel happy that I've got this new form of memory on my device, and I'm excited to see what it's like.
Is my SE going to shoot spatial video?
I don't think so. I think you have to have a LiDAR.
You know what sucks is our 2 older kids are going to be like, WTF, Dad? Where's my spatial video of me as a baby? And only the third.
And you'll just be like, look, kids, I promise you.
Only the third kid gets the cool tech.
I can promise to you that you were 3-dimensional.
Okay, Britt, hit us with some predictions.
Okay, I've got a few, but I'll go fast. The first one, though, is not about a tech company. It's about the state of us as humans over the next year because of technology. And, when you look at the last decade or two with the internet and all of the information out there, yours included, Jess. I think that we've all been succumbing to this multifaceted life of having to multitask. We're losing our attention to everything. And I think next year we're also going to start losing our memory. And I think we're going to lose our memory more.
I'm already there.
Because AI is going to start handling so much stuff for us and remembering stuff for us. Like I just set up a personal closet using this new AI platform. And like, I don't have to remember what I have in my closet anymore. It just like reminds me and tells me what I should wear today.
Ooh, what app is that?
Oh,
I like having my memory back.
okay. It's called Alta Daily, and it's every woman's dream. I have to plug it.
Are you an investor? We need a disclosure.
We are not.
Okay, thank you.
I'm eyeing it though. If anyone out there chases this and gets it before me, I'd be so pissed.
You just gave them the ticket to it.
Oh, maybe I did that on purpose, Dave.
Oh, so you think somebody's stocks and you're trying to misdirect everyone?
I'm so confused. Are you directing or misdirecting?
This is 4D chess. You have to guess. All right. So I think we're losing our memory. And at the same time, I think we're going to start talking to ourselves a lot more in private. I've already started doing this with Pi.
This is not where I thought our predictions were going, so I'm really enjoying this. Yes,
I know. I thought I'd throw a curveball here. So every time I'm in the car by myself.
Are you like going around being like, what's in its pockets?
No. So when I'm in a car by myself or when I was in bed with COVID, I would just talk to Pi like it's my friend, and because it has voice chat with you using AI. And I would just like be like, I would really like to understand how tax loss harvesting works. And can you put I literally talk to it for like 15 minutes because I'm trying to figure out all this end of year tax stuff. And it was like explaining it to me like it was just someone I was talking to. And I was getting so much smarter. And I actually think that it's, no offense to us in this podcast, like more interesting and educational than a podcast because it's customized and you can ask it questions back and forth. And I could ask it about like historical times. I could ask questions about certain wars. I could learn about anything.
You sound like my 5-year-old. It's like, I'm going to ask him about.
I'm really excited. Yeah. So I think we're going to talk to ourselves more.
I'm really into this prediction because it gives you a window into Britt Morin, who is so efficient that while recovering from COVID is educating herself about tax loss harvesting.
And wars.
Yeah. There are a lot of things I've always wanted to know more about, but I didn't really want to Google search.
Which wars are you learning about right now?
I've been watching The Crown. So I'm like back into the whole British Empire in like multiple eras.
Like the Opium Wars? Like what wars are you?
I was asking about what Churchill's reign was like.
Reign? You realize
Churchill had a reign?
I'm mixing The Crown with his reign. Winston Churchill.
This is exactly what AI does.
This is exactly the problem. Is that AI is
I have COVID right now.
I'm dying.
All right. I meant when Churchill was alive. And,
Did you prompt it? You're like, tell me about Churchill's reign.
No.
I am so going to hang up this pod and start talking to my phone and see what happens. Going? Yeah, that was 2. Right. Keep it.
Okay, fine. I'm going to keep going. I also agree on Apple Vision Pro. I don't think it's going to sell a lot, but I think people are going to be more impressed than they think. I think AI layoffs.
Wait. Before we just, of course, people are going to be impressed because only 6 people are going to buy it. Those people have spent $3,500 on it, and they're going to be like, "It must be the greatest thing ever because I spent $3,500 on it." It's a great marketing strategy.
I think it's going to blow away expectations. That's just what I'm saying. That's just my prediction.
There's no way. I am so less on that. You can be more.
This is good.
Britt, the thing is, people don't have that much money. It's like, that's a lot of money.
I'm not suggesting, by the way, Apple's expectations, not like consumer expectations. Apple already has small expectations. And so I think it's going to blow away their expectations.
Of course it will.
When the Macintosh released, the Macintosh was a $6,000 computer in today's dollars.
No, we know. This is, we know.
I get it. I actually found recently the receipt for the Dell 486 I had at one point. And I looked at it was a Dell computer, and it was $10,000 in those days. I was like, that is a lot of money for a computer.
Yeah.
No, we all understand. And I'm not.
I think you have to think of it as a computer. I think that's what's wrong here is people are thinking of it as an iPhone or something, and you have to think of it as a computer. This thing is a tool.
I'm not short or bearish on this category for all of time, but I do not think that next year is going to be a breakthrough year. But we shall see.
I'm not saying consumer breakthrough in terms of sales. I'm saying that I think the market in general will be more impressed with it than they've expected, and that Apple, even if they sandbag whatever quota they're putting out, even in their internal numbers, I think they're going to surpass what their internal numbers are. So
it's going to be so heavy, by the way, guys. Anyway, cool. Britt, you got more?
The last one I'll say is that I do think AI layoffs will continue happening in earnest. Like, I think people will start to have layoffs because of the productivity structures of their workforces.
Did you see our Google story this week?
Yeah, and I think that's going to happen to a lot more companies.
Yeah.
I have a way more fun AI prediction, which is I think that AI music as a genre is going to rise in a huge way next year. Like, I think that it's going to become a genre all its own.
I think all AI content will become genres.
It's funny, we've invested in several pre-AI music companies over the years. Remember Brain FM, and then there's an interesting platform. We've invested in several companies doing like interesting music generative stuff. It's clearly becoming like a technology that is pretty easy to apply in a bunch of places. I'm going to go under on it actually being popular next year. I think what'll happen is that there'll be a lot of like background music or elevator music that will be AI generated because it's cheaper, right? So you'd be like, instead of like licensing music, I'll just generate.
I think that's true.
Sound like it's like clip art. So I believe clip art music, like MIDI style updated, will be like.
Absolutely agree with
but
this.
I don't think it'll compete for mainline cultural attention. The interesting thing about music is it's like all cultural.
But Sam, that's why I'm categorizing it as a genre. I don't think that it's going to compete directly in like mainstream categories. I think it will be a category in and to itself.
And what about Taylor Swift? And will she release a new album next year?
Absolutely.
I think she gets engaged. I think Taylor gets engaged.
What?
To an AI?
Yeah.
Talk about evolution.
No, it started as a marketing stunt.
No.
It started as a marketing stunt, and then oopsie, they actually fell in love. But it's fine.
That's like isn't that like a Hallmark movie? You know what it's kind of like? What was that movie that I liked where the comedian ended up married to the president?
Oh, that's a good movie with Seth Rogen.
That is a good movie. What is it? Oh, yeah. Oh, what's it called? It's great.
Someone Google it while I keep it going.
That's what I'm thinking is going to happen to Taylor Swift. She's like the president marrying the buffoon that she...
He's not a buffoon.
He's a very sweet...
Well,
Long shot.
I don't think he's that smart, but like, he's cute.
You don't think he's that smart? Okay.
He spells squirrel Squirle. I'm just going to leave it there. That's how he spells squirrel.
When he was in college.
No, 10 years ago.
When he was in college? I mean, your Ansel could spell squirrel.
Britt, this guy is arguably the greatest tight end in the history of the NFL. Like, who cares whether he can spell?
I said he's hot. Taylor might care, as will her future children who inherit his genetics.
Well, she could IVF it.
What? I just don't even know. Don't even know, guys.
That's like probably the most insulting thing you could possibly do is marry someone and be like, I'm gonna have someone else's kids.
I am keeping us on the rails. Come on, we've got minutes left before the end of the year before we wrap the.
She's going to release Reputation, Taylor's version. I think it'll happen.
Okay, that doesn't count. That doesn't count.
I think that's happening on New Year's Eve.
You think it's coming that fast?
Yes. I think it's happening on New Year's Eve.
What do you know? There have been no hints.
I'm just based on...
Dave's in all the deep subreddits, Jess. He knows
things. But what about Midnight's too? Because she wore a midnight themed dress on her birthday.
Yeah, I think that might be true, but I think that Reputation will come on New Year's Eve because New Year's Eve's on the album. And I really do think she wanted to get them all out this year. So that's my theory. And then I think, next year...
My mind will be blown.
There'll be new music.
I just really hope we haven't reached peak Taylor. I hope we keep going. And I was completely wrong about her relationship with Travis Kelce.
Well, I will say this.
I thought it was pure marketing.
I do think that Taylor could launch a social network, guys.
Okay.
And it seems like that would work.
I'm going to keep us punctual-ish. Sam, hit us with some predictions. Will TikTok be banned next year by the United States government?
No, a year from now, I'll be holding a sign which says it's been 700 days. TikTok is not banned.
That's okay. We'll work on the math. Okay.
No, TikTok won't be banned, but it should be. The presidential election is going to be a mess. You guys have somehow skipped it. That's going to be the big story of the year. And that will be a mess. And there'll be incredible.
I think that's so obvious.
There's going to be incredible disinformation, state actor campaign. Like, it's going to be wild, and no one's going to trust anything.
Who's going to be the Cambridge Analytica of this one?
I mean, everyone.
TikTok, I think.
Well, it's like, the funny thing is that, honestly, I think that
Sam's predictions are going to be right.
The Overton window has like shifted on this so far that like I actually think everyone just accepts Cambridge Analytica now. Right? Like, the thing that was shocking about Cambridge Analytica for people, again, like, there's a longer story about whether it was real and da-da-da-da. But like, setting aside all the bullshit, just take the top level narrative of like, some people did some stuff where they collected data and then tried to influence people's beliefs in a social media setting. Like, at the time, that was like, oh my God, who would have thought to do that? Like, crazy. And now it's like, yeah, like, everyone's doing that. Like, it's like not, it's like,
that is a good point. It would be fun to look back on things we were outraged by in prior times.
Well, it's like, again, like, you can say, like, there's a whole other story to it, which we're not going to get into, but the basic reality.
Isn't this a proverbial question, though? It's like, Sam, what will be of that level of importance to this election?
That's a great question. Like, what is going to be shocking that people didn't expect?
Yeah. Isn't that the question?
It's not going to be deep fakes, you know? It's not like...
No, because everyone is expecting that.
Because everyone's expecting that. I think, are you done predicting, Sam? Not to cut you off.
Well, I wanted to make a pickleball prediction.
Oh, please, yes.
I like it. The snowboarding of tennis.
Thank you, Dave. That's exactly what it is. And the funny part is, I realized recently, is like the same punk kids who were like pushing snowboarding and skiing. They're playing pickleball. They're older. It's literally the same. They're like this. They're literally redoing snowboarding, and it still sucks just as much.
One is an extreme sport, and one is barely a hobby.
Well, I played pickleball indoors the other day with an investor. I'm sorry, not pickleball. Please, I played tennis. And there was a bunch of people playing pickleball indoors. It was the worst experience of my life. I went to play tennis, and it's like bing, 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 bing. You couldn't hear a thing. It's terrible. So I think indoor pickleball is going to be banned.
Banned?
Wow. Thank you for that.
TikTok and indoor pickleball banned.
I think there's going to be an antitrust case against pickleball.
Meanwhile, we just got a pro pickleball team investment deal in our inbox yesterday.
Do not do that.
Don't do that. No.
Do you know how many of those are? There's like, by the way, they're so cheap. You could. That's everyone I know has bought.
Prices are very good.
Everyone I know has bought a pickleball team.
Sam, this one may or may not be for your home state.
Okay, so pickleball rollups. Don't invest, Menlo. Don't invest in Anthropic. Go the pickleball rollup route.
Invest because, like, what's a great deal for them? They make 2% on $700 million in the next 10 years doing nothing, and then they have a flyer. That's a totally fine deal as long as investors will give you the cash.
Okay, I'm going to make a prediction for more like maximum uncertainty. Like, one of the things looking back, okay, this kind of cuts against that, but there are a lot of great business stories this year, dramatic business stories. SVB, a lot of like crazy startup stuff, all the way through to OpenAI. And I think we're on this train as picking up what I was like the next shoe to drop from prior conversations with all that's happening in the world. So I think there's going to be things that kind of make those look like child's play, honestly. I think there's going to be a lot more big swing surprises.
That's very hard to pin you on that. Can you like be more specific?
Mm-hmm.
No.
I agree.
I'm pulling a total Sam lesson here, and I'm going to be right no matter what. But I have more predictions. I came prepared.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, Jess, do you mean like big governance disruptions, big like...
I mean, I think the unexpected. I think if you're going in...
Expect the unexpected?
Like big black swan events.
Yeah, I think, yes, I do. And I think some of it might be in sort of triggered by election stuff or geopolitics. I think you've got leaders and business leaders like Elon who inspire more people like that, who are showing no signs of slowing their roll or adjusting their approach. I think you have a market that's still very weird, right? Like that, I think you guys are absolutely right in pointing out the changes happening in venture capital, but then you've got so much money sloshing around from so many corners of the world. And so like, I think you might see, I don't know, you can see $100 billion venture capital fund. I don't know. Like, I think we're just going to see.
Terrible idea.
Yeah, I mean, especially as the market starts to come back around, which it looks like it's going to.
I just think things feel like they're not rational. I think no one knows what the market's going to do. And this whole, like, because the Fed said this on a Tuesday, I mean, that's the public stock markets, but like I think things are going to get really weird, and expect the unexpected. I think there's a lot more practical stuff too, but Sam, would you like to respond to that?
Well, I wanted to make sure, I don't know how far we are from ending. I wanted to make sure I ended with some crypto predictions.
Oh, but you're supposed to be done with your predictions. My last prediction too, like I think and this is not, we're just seeing this in talking to information subscribers, but the new hotness is definitely like the infrastructure stuff and hardware and energy and a lot of things that have been like very essential to technology, but just haven't gotten as much attention.
Back to the future with deep tech.
Yeah. And so you've got obviously NVIDIA and semis has become such a huge story, but like, I think there's going to be some fascinating stuff. Would be a lot more attention on the power behind AI that is required. And I think that's going to like reorder the AI landscape more than like, is GPT 3.9, different from Gemini 7.2, right? So I think it's like pretty exciting if you think of the intersection of geopolitics, the sort of energy sector, different corners of tech. We're seeing just a lot of interest in questions around that. So
the energy people are definitely trying to get in on the AI story. There's no question about that.
Well, but I think they need to be, right? I mean, I think
they want to invest in transformers.
Well, but it's also, I mean, we're back. One of the interesting things about AI, and I'm not enough of a Silicon Valley historian to make this point eloquently, but like we're seeing the intersection of sort of the research side of the technology world and then the more business side of the technology world. Like the barriers between those have really collapsed. Like it's kind of like all happening at once. I just think that's really interesting. And I think that will go deeper into the stack. And
yeah, but you could argue the only reason that's happening all at once is because the consumer use case collapsed. It like all came to a point all at once, right? Like as soon as 100 million people were using it, suddenly the business case is super clear. And so the business collapses into it. There are plenty of research areas where that's just not the case. And so it's way harder to gather capital.
Oh yeah. I think that is how it happened, but I think it's interesting that we're here and it's weird. I mean, it's the first time in my reporting career that we're like covering product launches and like boning up on like benchmarks in the same like coverage, right? Like you're trying to understand like the pre-training benchmarks of these AI models at the same time you're trying to understand who's using it, how much are the cloud providers getting from it? Like, this isn't a bad thing. I think it's a fascinating thing. And I mean, the whole story of technology is like, because of the extraordinary power to transform consumers' lives, like these businesses just accelerate very rapidly. And I think we're going to see that like literally come to like building nuclear power plants, right, in the near term. So Sam, you can have crypto, but we can't end this year on crypto. So then I'm going to turn over to Britt.
Well, I think we
have to do a couple crypto things.
Crypto predictions. We will get a Bitcoin ETF finally.
Absolutely, we will. Double down. Yeah.
Here's my crazy one. You ready?
We're ready.
I'll do the disclaimer, which is obviously completely self-serving because I was their seed investor. I think Solana flips Ethereum.
I mean, it's already flipping on some metrics as of last week.
It's flipping on a lot of metrics.
You guys get, here's hoping, but okay.
I agree with you on this.
And we can like all buy, gold-plated clothing, but for next December's holiday season. But I'm really bullish on Solana's position right now. I think they've done a fabulous job building through the down cycle. And
they're just
a lot of lines are crossing. It's just a great platform. And so I'm really thrilled to see that. And then
it really is a superior technology. I don't think a lot of people realize how superior the technology is.
Okay, guys, I really am going to keep us moving.
Thank you.
Any other?
Last thing, I think there'll be one more big crypto launch in early 2024. I'm not going to say what it is but I'm convinced there'll be one more.
You can't predict things that you know. I think there's going to be one more crypto person going to jail next year. How about that?
That's good. I like that.
Okay. It's specific enough for you. We didn't touch on regulation other than where we started. I think that's going to continue to be a huge...
Last week at the governor's mansion event that I alluded to, that I went to.
How was the governor's?
I'm sorry that I don't have time to share all the beans, but I did meet the senator that passed the executive order on AI. She was like, "Wait, what did you think of my executive order?"
How does the senator pass an? Not the senator. She works for the governor for Newsom, but I met the senator who passed the bill for NCAA
college students to be able to like own their name and likeness and do all their marketing. And that was an interesting conversation too. Anyway.
Okay. Bring us
I'll fill
to
you
some
in
books.
early January on all that. I'm going to bring you to the books. So we're going to close this by some book recommendations for all of you who have a holiday break.
Get your Kindles out.
Yeah. We asked our back channel for some of the best books that they would recommend, and there were many thrown out, but these were the top 3 that were thrown out the most. Number 1, Project Hail Mary. By the way, I haven't read any of these, but apparently Dave has read like all of them. So congratulations, Dave.
Not all of
Number
them.
2, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow.
Oh, so good. So good.
We did like
So
that.
good. I did read that one. It's fantastic.
Okay. And number 3, The Order of Time.
Oh, I haven't read 1 and 3.
It's complicated. Order of Time is interesting. I don't like supporting the author.
Okay.
All of you guys need to also say what your couple favorites were this year.
Jess, you did listen to that book in the car. Remember back from Brooklyn? I made you listen to that on an audiobook.
That was excruciating.
That's Order of Time.
Yes. You know what I'm reading right now, based on your recommendation, is The Organized Mind. And it has to do with what I was saying earlier about like our lack of attention and now memory, thanks to technology.
I'm reading Danny Meyer's book on hospitality that was recommended to me.
Oh, I've heard that book's
The Restaurant
great.
Tour. It's excellent. It is not you. If you are in or building a business, care about people, it's excellent.
Is it called Setting the Table?
It is called Setting the Table.
Okay. Downloading.
Care about people?
I have one number 1 book of the year
Okay.
by my friend Rick Rubin, The Creative Act. I just think it was so much better than all the other books I read this year. And it's also just a lifetime of creative wisdom. It's truly wonderful.
I really liked Dragon Master's Secret of the Water.
Okay. Let's leave it with Creative Act. Although I am in the future all for kids media recommendations because goodness knows they can be useful.
Was that a kids one?
Yes. Dragon Masters is kids.
Dragon Master's Rise of the Water Dragon? No.
Hey, I don't doubt you would read that kind of book, Sam.
It could have been about Churchill's reign.
Yeah, it's about Churchill controlling dragons
Through
to
all
save
of you.
England.
I hate you.
Morans, we're going to miss you in the remaining weeks of this year. It has been so much fun. So grateful for this pod.
This has been fun. I'm glad we did
and
this.
for you guys. Sam, you too, but I'll see a fair amount of you. To our listeners,
Tune in for season 2.
Thank you. Tune in for season 2. We've got plans, we've got guests, but also take some time off, pick up a book, go for a walk, clear the head, because buckle up. 2024 is going to be insane.
I say go to the office.
I say do whatever you want.
I'm not going to go to the office.
I just don't even know what to do with that. Happy holidays. Thank you guys for listening, for sharing,
holidays.
for commenting, and we will see you in 2024.
Should we sing them out? More
Farewell.
or less. David, Britt, and Sam
More
and
or less.
We'll leave that to Britt.
Put it all right to the test. More or less.
Bye. Bye.
If you enjoyed this show, please leave us a virtual high five by rating it and reviewing it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Find more information about each episode in the show notes and follow us on social media by searching for @MoreOrLess, @DaveMorin, @Lesson, @JLesson, and as for me, I'm @Brit. See you guys next time.